Welcome to today's MTD podcast. We're at Shearline Precision Engineering today in Ely. We're with the Managing Director, John Littlechild, and we're going to be talking about the company's history, how they're coping at the moment with COVID-19. I'm also joined by Gio Albanese, obviously a proud member of the MTD team as well. I'm the founder and Managing Director of MTD. I should be hosting today's show, but firstly, I'd like to welcome you both. John, firstly with yourself, good to be here today at Shearline. We've learnt a lot this morning, and I'm sure this podcast is going to be great. Maybe you could just tell us a little bit about yourself and the history of the company to start us off.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. Shearline was founded in 1973 by David Littlechild, primarily spawned out of the requirement in Cambridge from the high-tech circles for precision engineered components. Since then, the company has grown considerably, moved to its present site in Ely in 1993, and the factory has been extended 3 times since then to its current size of 60,000 square metres.
And you're Managing Director. How long have you been Managing Director, John?
I've been Managing Director about 18 months, so not very long, although I've been involved with Shearline for the past 20 years.
Okay, so coming up in today's show, we're going to be talking about current business activities. Quite interesting, John. You've been in the chair of Managing Director for 18 months, and we've gone through a lot of difficult times then as a country. I suppose you've been here with all the Brexit that was going on, and now the COVID-19. So it'll be interesting to get your steer on what's happening. Gio, you're with us today. We've been around the machine shop. We've looked at what they do here. Quite impressive, isn't it?
Very impressive indeed. I think the mix of machines really stands out. The mix of capabilities, not just in the machine shop, but fabrication. And John, I'm sure, will tell us about all of the different capabilities that you offer, but very, very impressive.
Now, that is the point to start, really. Let's learn about what you do, because one of the things that we've sort of seen today is that you've got a great machine shop, and that's what we knew you for, and that's what a lot of people will know you for. But you do more than just machining, don't you? Maybe you could tell us your other services.
Absolutely. So in addition to the machine shop, we have a considerable sheet metal and fabrication workshop with a 4 kilowatt and laser and a punching machine. We're able to make a range of precision sheet metal work enclosures, brackets, all manner of different things. That all allied with various finishing techniques, powder coating shop, which is also in-house, wet and dry bead blast. Enabling us to be a true one-stop shop for any components that any potential customer may want.
Yeah, I think that it really stands out. I think when you talk about a UK manufacturer, with all the different capabilities that you've got on site, you have actually diversified into so many different industries. Can you tell the listeners the kind of industries that you've gone into and the reasons why?
So originally, Shearline cut its teeth with mainly the inkjet printing industries, which came directly out of Cambridge University. Since then, it has diversified into multiple other industries, such as medical, science, a little bit of automotive and motorsport, packaging, defence, and more recently aerospace. We do currently now hold AS 9100.
And has it been important for you to spread your wings? It's always can be dangerous, can't it, to have too many eggs in one basket?
Yes, I mean, at the moment I would quite like a very large medical egg in my basket because I'm sure that there are a lot of companies involved in medical applications that are doing very well at the moment. However, that can be extremely dangerous because having all the eggs in one basket, if that industry or sector suffers a downturn, obviously you'll go down with it. So it's very important to ensure that the company is spread over as many sectors as possible.
And what about investment, John? We're here today. We've been looking at your new MX330 machine that you've just purchased from Matsuura. You're obviously a big believer in embracing technology and trying to make your business different. You weren't scared to invest in this time, which is really encouraging.
Yes, I must admit, we did have a few sleepless nights over the thought process of buying a new machine or such an expensive machine at such a time. But going back to David's founding principles of this business, we have invested to move forward. And investment is the most important thing that a company can do to keep abreast of its competition, to ensure that it's economic and can operate efficiently and therefore offer its customers good value for money.
Yeah, I mean, even on your logo, invest, innovation, and inspire. And I think that is the key and should be the key for many manufacturers that are looking to get out of this current situation and to move forward. I think, in my opinion, personally, I think if you don't invest, you move backwards because everyone else will be catching you up. And touching upon the range of different machine tools and capabilities that you have, it kind of goes hand in hand with the different sectors that you service. You mentioned that some parts lend themselves to one machine and others another machine. How important is that?
It's very important. We've found, in the industries that we operate within, having a wide range of machines is very beneficial to us. We do have some machines which are very old, but they still have a very important part to play in some of the products that we're making. Obviously, we've got cutting-edge, brand-new machines such as the Matsura we've already spoken of, and the twin-spindle Morisiki lathes, which offer enormous advantages. In any business, the most expensive commodity is its staff and people. Investment in machinery is second to that. So if you can invest in machines which remove not totally the need for staff, but obviously remove the reliance on staff all of the time by encompassing lights out running, unmanned running, and automation, it's given you a pretty good start to being a competitive, forward-thinking company.
Now, I think there's going to be there's videos on our channel that we've also done whilst we've been here today that people can watch. But to set the scene, if they haven't, looking at your machine shop, and I know we talk about there's many other areas to the business, but you are awash with a lot of different brands of machines. You've mentioned some yourself. You've also got Doosan machines, XYZ machines, the Datron machine that you have too. Quite a spread. Is this a good example of a company buying the right machine for the job?
Yes. At the end of the day, one manufacturer I'm not aware of, if they do exist, can make every machine that a potential machine shop may need. We've shopped around, and be it the level of service that the machine can offer, its longevity, and various features within that machine, it pays to shop around. I can't really see the point of tying yourself to one particular manufacturer.
I agree. I think that you're a perfect example of that, because a lot of companies do tend to stay to the same brand to familiarise themselves maybe with just the programming, for example.
Absolutely.
But to have this the versatility and flexibility, I would imagine it is important when you're servicing so many sectors. You also, when we talk about automation, you've also invested in Industry 4.0, you're monitoring your production. How have you found that as well?
Yeah, so that was a very recent project. We only went live in March this year. So we've upgraded our MRP system to MeTrack. And the reason for doing that was out of the need for information about what is going on in the business at any one time. So we have live shop floor data capture, which can literally indicate to supervision how jobs are running on the shop at any point in time.
I think that's really important, isn't it, Paul? We've been mentioning on MTD for many months. I mean, automation is key. I think people have been slow to adopt it, but it does seem to have brought it to the forefront with this current crisis, and hopefully, moving forward, people will adopt it because they need to. But also Industry 4.0 and some of the other emerging technologies that are now available that people were maybe reluctant to invest in. I think that it's imperative that they do. Would you agree, guys?
100%. And I think, making yourself as efficient as possible has never been more important. And I'm sure that's exactly what your software is going to do. What's been fascinating and somewhat, and I don't like using this word, but disappointing about today is that when we spoke to you, when we first got here, we were intrigued by some of the projects that you get involved in, some of the parts that you make for different industries. And the minute we say to you, John, can we film some of these parts? You go, I can't. You can't, because we're contractually committed not to disclose and show what we do. But maybe what we can do on this podcast is talk about some of those exciting things, because engineering is exciting, and you've certainly been involved at the forefront. So maybe you could give us a couple of examples of things that you do without giving too much away, but sort of whetting the appetite for those that are interested in the business.
Yes, so we make parts which go into weapons guidance systems, joysticks, that type of thing. We're also making other parts for aeronautical applications, such as transducers, which are monitoring the length of pipeline which has been delivered from an air-to-air refueling setup. We also do work with electron microscopes.
And do you get to see how the finished product works and get to learn about how these things operate? And does that excite you as well? I mean, it must be.
Absolutely. I mean, as you alluded, there were so many different examples that we went through this morning. I was saying, look at this, look, it does this. This ends up in this part or in that racing car. But unfortunately, we can't really talk about it, and we can't show you. You can't show us the parts. There's so many examples such as that that unfortunately we're involved in. So it is exciting for us and the staff, but obviously we can't talk about it.
I mean, I wish we could talk about it. Some of the parts are fantastic, and it's a credit to yourselves. I mean, from a managing director perspective, I mean, you've only just become MD, well, relatively recently. You gave us a tour of the full facility, and you seem to be extremely knowledgeable about every single cell that you took us around. Would you be able to be the right MD for the business if you didn't have all that knowledge? And how did you acquire the knowledge within this business?
So I believe that is absolutely crucial to any business. If you don't understand your business from the ground up, I don't see how you can manage it and understand what is going on in that business. I've been involved in engineering all my life. I did an engineering apprenticeship, and before I came to Shearline, and my initial job at Shearline was actually the installation of the air conditioning system and a combined heat and power plant, so arguably nothing to do with the business itself.
I was going to say, it's warm in here at the moment. Does it work?
It's warm. Well, it's not running at the moment, Paul, unfortunately. I then moved into the maintenance, health and safety and environmental management, which is what I've been doing for the bulk of the time I've been here. So with that role, it did enable me to see more or less the entire factory, the entire operation, arguably from the other side, as it were, to learn about everything that goes on here.
When we talk about that tour that Gio mentioned, it'd be quite compelling when you bring potential customers here for them to walk around and see everything that you do. And hopefully we can get a bit of that across in this podcast. The various cells that you have, it was great to see the fabricated side, the punch machines, the laser cutters, laser in ceramics, and then all at the end of it, the machine inside that we see here, even down to like the Datron high-speed machining center, or router as you called it. So many different skills. And I said to you, is there a part you could show us that demonstrates all of these? And we did see one there, but of course, again, we couldn't get it on camera. But it was great to see in that box everything that your business does: precision machining, laser cutting, ceramics, all in one place, wasn't it? It must be great for you to be able to show customers that. And how different do you think you are with being able to do all these things?
I think we're relatively unusual. I mean, there are a lot of machine shops around. There are also a lot of fabrication shops around, and there are a few which have both. The difference being that we've also got the mechanical assembly and electronics capabilities, so that we are able to offer a customer almost a complete package. And as you saw, yes, those parts that had all been produced in-house were all boxed up into a kit of parts, which can then go straight out for servicing of that machine.
I think another thing that really stood out and impressed me, I mean, a lot of companies talk about skill levels and finding skilled employees. On that tour, we spoke to a couple of your employees as we went round. One that stood out was on the Datron. And he seemed extremely knowledgeable again, extremely skilled about materials, cutting speeds, strategies.
Enthusiastic as well.
Enthusiastic. But the guy that you interviewed on the Matt Sora as well, exactly the same. Young lads. I mean, I feel old nowadays, to be fair, but not as old as Paul, but that's another story. But very, very knowledgeable. You know, you go to some companies, and I'm not being disrespectful here, a lot of companies employ operators. But you seem to have a very skilled guy on each machine. Is this something that I've picked upon, or is that just the people we got to talk to?
It's the 50-50 question, isn't it? I mean, you know, there's different models and of ways of running a machine shop. You can have a centralised programming and setting core of people who do nothing but setting and programming. And then you effectively just have operators who are running the machines. The model that Shearline is using, and I must admit we have tried both, is with more skilled operators who are setters and in some cases programmers as well, that are running machines or in charge of a cell of machines, so that effectively all the knowledge is at a very local level. There's pros and cons of both, and it's one of the sort of things that I'm constantly thinking about, you know, is there a better way than this? Each method has its pros and cons. The thing is, a lot of people, you know, like their job satisfaction, you know, and if you were to potentially change from the model we've got to a centralised model, arguably you wouldn't need so many programmers. I know what it can be like running a machine, and obviously being able to move forwards with your own personal development is important, and it's important to keep our staff at Shearline happy and interested and engaged in their work, and obviously enabling them to move up the ladder is a way of doing that.
I think that's even more important in your area here geographically. We travel, you know, up and down the country, around the world, but this is probably one area we get to least. Now, I don't know whether that's because there's less engineering companies around here, or whether it's, I don't really know the reason for it. But what I would say is that skilled staff, when there are less companies, must be even harder to find, because you're not getting people trained up in the area. So they might have to relocate here. And it's quite an expensive area of the country to live, for one, isn't it? Certainly with Cambridge just around the corner. So I've got to take my hat off to you. I think you've obviously done exceptionally well, and it looks like the method that you've chosen is right. Let's talk about where you are as a business at the moment. We've gone through some, as we have said on quite a few occasions recently, some difficult times. You've been in the chair for 18 months. Did Brexit or the Brexit situation have any impact on your business at all?
So yes, there was actually an influx of orders at the time of Brexit being announced. A lot of customers were ordering forwards, trying to build up stocks. So we did see an initial flurry of orders. And then things more or less, I would say, went back to normal. So other than that initial flurry of people, I dare say, panicking and wanting to ensure security of product supply, we haven't really seen an awful lot of change.
But then with the pandemic, so what's happened here as a result of that? Because I'm sure this plays out across a lot of companies and people that will be listening.
Absolutely. So it took us quite a long time to be affected by the pandemic. So before, we didn't see our sort of order book deteriorating initially. It has taken a good couple of months before that really became something that was becoming apparent. Quite obviously, the operating arrangements inside the factory have had to change, with obviously increased social distancing, additional hygiene. As you've seen and looked around the factory, it's a relatively spacious factory, so we don't have too many problems with staff working on top of each other. So we're very fortunate in that respect that we don't have social distancing issues, and work more or less has carried on. So in some respects, it's been almost normal to continue coming to work, and it has been nice to continue coming to work. Obviously, in the early days, we weren't sure how manufacturing was going to be affected by the pandemic and the regulations. Obviously, a lot of industries had to close down, and the information flow initially was rather stunted, to say the least. But we've been operating throughout the pandemic. We never stopped.
And would you say, I mean, we touched upon already in this podcast investment and innovation, would you say that if you didn't, or you didn't invest in the past in this innovation and new technology and automation, would you have still been able to remain competitive as you are now? And how important is that competitiveness?
Competitiveness is extremely important. At the end of the day, customers expect quality. It's a given. It's not optional. And clearly price is very often a factor which customers factor into their purchasing process. So you have to remain competitive, because if you're not competitive, there are hundreds of other companies that the customer can potentially go to. It's just a fact of life. You need to be competitive. If you're not competitive, you're potentially not going to be in business very long.
And let's just mention the ventilator challenge, because you were involved in that as well, weren't you?
Yes,
at
we were.
The start. Didn't quite go as you were hoping, though. And I think this is we're hearing this a lot. Maybe you could just tell us of your experience.
Yes, so early on in the pandemic, we were approached to manufacture parts for a ventilator, which happened in a very, very short space of time, literally in probably less than a week and a half from receiving drawings to actually beginning to manufacture parts. We were manufacturing around about 9 different components, some milled, some turned, some complex, some not so complex. And unfortunately, or fortunately, because every cloud does have a silver lining, the project was one of the projects which was pulled by the government, so it was decided not to continue with the production of that model of ventilator, so the work was effectively cancelled. So whilst at the time that was disappointing for our staff, because everybody was really pleased to be able to be doing something, for the national importance, obviously it was pleasing to know that clearly the government felt there were enough ventilators in circulation and the extra ones were not required.
Well, talking about kind of government schemes and competitiveness, is this the time now for UK manufacturing in general to really pull together and look at ourselves, and as this period given ourselves that time to look at our processes and become more competitive in regards to reducing cost per part, so we can start buying British goods at a cheaper cost, keeping the work in the UK, and start selling abroad rather than buying everything in cheap? Do you think we can change this kind of habit that we've got ourselves into? And how important is it to change?
Yes, I do. I mean, over the last 10 years, the China threat, it's clear we've lost work to China. There's no doubt about that. But over the last 10 years, we have seen work, for various reasons, gradually migrate back to the UK and in some cases back into this factory. A lot of people learnt that China wasn't all it was cracked up to be. Clearly China has got a place and will always have a place, as will the other low-cost markets throughout the world. I mean, there are new emerging markets which I dare say are going to be a threat to China. With the way China's going, they're becoming very industrialised. People are becoming consumerised, wages are going to start going up out there, and their competitive edge will begin to diminish. They're going to have to keep investing in their machinery and maintaining efficiencies just as we have to.
And your future here, I know it's hard to kind of predict and look in that crystal ball at the moment, but we are certainly, things are getting better, and you've even said yourself, and so have a lot of the companies that we visit, the phone started to ring a bit more, and those inquiries that weren't coming in are coming in. Are you quite optimistic, John, about the 12 months ahead or the 2 years ahead, certainly now with what you've got here in terms of plant?
Yes, absolutely. I've never doubted British manufacturing and what can be achieved, by making things locally. I have no doubt that British manufacturing is going to go forwards and will succeed. It doesn't. I'm not at all concerned that I think, British manufacturing is finished. It's absolutely not the case. We are going to come out of this, and we'll come out of it strong. As you say, all the factors that have been bearing down on us are making us into a more lean, efficient workplace, which can deliver.
It'll be nice, won't it, when we don't have any of these things to worry about? Let's hope it's not too far away. Gentlemen, we're going to wrap this one up at this point. I would conclude by saying that you really should take a look at what Shearline Precision Engineering do. There are some videos on the MTD channel where you can see, you can actually visualise and see what we've been talking about today. But hopefully we've given you a good overview. Gents, thanks for joining us. John, thanks for the invitation here today. It's been a fascinating day. Thank you very much. And that's it for today's MTD podcast. Keep tuned to the channel where we'll obviously be producing more podcasts like this on a weekly basis.
Thanks for listening to the MTD podcast. If you found value in this episode, please subscribe and leave a rating and review. Find more episodes on MTDCNC.com.